Orange is the new black is where we dive in. Every episode we'll discuss, even the scenes that made us cuss. So follow me, join the spree. I try to space with 2 E's. Spoilers everywhere, so be warned. Super fans, please come on board. Susie's special line and all these ideas, because we make it everything truly as it is.
Hello and welcome to Yadda Space. I'm Yadda and I'm so glad you're here. This is a rewatch podcast for the Netflix TV show Orange is the New Black. That means that there may be spoilers about things that happen in the future episodes, so please be warned. This is definitely a spoiler zone. On today's episode of our Orange is the New Black rewatch, we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 3, titled Hugs Can Be Deceiving. The IMDb synopsis for this episode says, Piper is challenged by her Soso experience. Morello gets her heart broken, and a figure from Tasty's past arrives to disturb the status quo. We will also be getting our first backstories from Suzanne today as well. We have Michael Trim back again as the director of this episode. As we know, he's directed 11 episodes of Orange, with the most recent one being last week's episode, Looks Blue, Tastes Red, which was pretty good in my opinion, and if I remember correctly, this one is good too. Lauren Morelli is the head writer of this episode. We've already seen her work on some of my favorite episodes from season 1, like the Whack Pack episode and Tall Men with Feelings, which had me oversharing and crying like a baby. So I have high hopes for this episode. Miss Morelli is best known for her work on 26 episodes of Orange, so we will definitely be seeing her again. And as I always say, I know that there's more than one person in a writer's room, so I would like to give a shout out to the entire writing team. Thank you guys for writing such a great show. Y'all told the stories that were not being told, and for that, we thank you. IMDb rated this episode an 8. So at the end of this pod, I will be giving my personal episode rating for this episode as well. But I encourage you guys to go ahead and write your episode ratings in the comments so that we can get an idea of what we the people think is actually the rating on this episode. Okay, so let's get into it. When the episode opens up, we're with Morello as she's escorting a group of new inmates into the prison. She's showing them all around where everything is, and one of the new inmates that we see in this group is Soso. As we know, Soso becomes one of the featured characters on the show, so this is the beginning of our time with her here. And as I said before, I know some people don't care for Soso. I mean, there are things about her that I don't like, as there are with anybody, but for the most part, Soso's good with me. I really like her storyline with Poussey, so she's good with me. So as Morello is walking the group of new inmates into the prison, they come up to a group of inmates that we know. There's Boo, Poussey, Flocka, and Cindy standing there. And so Boo starts to hit on Soso in a bit of an overbearing way. Soso is clearly not interested in her advances, and so Morello tells Boo to keep it in her pants as she continues to escort the ladies through the prison. As they're walking away, the inmates that we know start laughing pretty loudly, including Poussey, who starts giving Soso like these kissy lips, like, okay, that's a bit much. I don't think I remembered that about their first interaction, but that's what happened. So as they're all joking around and laughing at the new inmate's expense, they get cut short. They are stopped in their tracks when they see Piper walk back into the prison. She walks past the group of inmates that we know and she knows without even speaking. Cindy gets up and she's like, oh shit, she is risen, as she does the sign of the cross. They are shocked to see Piper back. Over in the ladies' bathroom, we see Red at the sinks, and she has her foot up on the counter with her leg bent as she's shaving her legs. Meanwhile, her back is clearly hurting because as she reaches to grab for something, she ends up having to stop and grab her back instead, assumingly in pain. And it makes me wonder, where the hell is Norma? I thought Norma was the one that does her legs for her. I guess since she lost the kitchen, even Norma's not by her side anymore. Some friend. Fair weather friends. They're only around when things are good. When things are bad, they're nowhere to be seen. So as Red starts to put her shaving stuff away, she pauses because she hears someone singing from the showers. When Red looks around the corner, she finds out that the person singing is V. V is in there looking completely relaxed, as if she's like at some spa or something, not in the middle of a prison. Which I guess, good for her. She can take herself outside of this place for a moment. I mean, that's a good skill to have if you're in prison. When Red realizes that it's V, she says, oh shit. Similar to how Tasty said, oh shit, at the end of last week's episode when she saw V. So it looks like Red and V share some history as well, but we'll get there. Over in the rec room, it looks like the black girls are playing charades. Cindy's up and she's trying to act out something while Poussey, Tasty, and Janae guess, and they have Suzanne keeping the time. None of them were able to guess what Cindy was acting out, which apparently was Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. To which Tasty says, "Rest in peace, BT dubs," as she also gives the sign of the cross. And so Tasty's up, and apparently her and Poussey are in sync because every single clue that Tasty throws out, Poussey knows the answer right away. They are on the same wavelength. Tasty gives the clue of crazy dude who believes in aliens, and Poussey says Tom Cruise. Tasty says basketball, nerd glasses, and Poussey initially responds with LeBron, but when she's told that's wrong, she says, "Oh, you're right, D-Wade." When Tasty gives them the clue of the chick whose husband died real young, Poussey yells, "The white Michelle Williams," which is correct. Rest in peace, Heath Ledger. Shout out Dawson's Creek. But Tasty and Poussey did so well with that round that Cindy's like, "Listen, if y'all two are playing together, I quit." But Poussey tells her, "It's not our fault you're not caught up on your US Weekly." Tasty pipes in with, "Stars, they're just like us, Mackenzie." Little callback to their little bit. And so they're all laughing, but that's when Suzanne says, "Hey, do you guys think I could try?" Tasty tells Suzanne that they need her on clock duty. And Suzanne's like, "Listen, I like clock duty, but, I kind of want to play." But it sounds like the girls don't want her to play because the last time she played, she kind of lost control and she did that whole head hitting thing. And so the guards broke it up. Janae says they're still not allowed to play Jenga because of her. They end up brushing Suzanne off completely, telling her, "Listen, we already got an even number, so sorry, you can't play." And Suzanne looks so disappointed. Like you can see the child in her there. Being left out, she wants to play and they won't let her play at the playground. I don't think that's a nice feeling at any age. So Suzanne goes back to the clock and she starts counting off their time. She tells them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as she gets to 1, we transition to her first backstory where little Suzanne is saying, "Blast off!" Another great transition. Very cute. Little Suzanne has her hair in a great big afro. She's wearing pink fairy or butterfly wings as she's running into her mother's hospital room to meet her baby sister, with her dad following closely behind. When little Suzanne gets in there, she proudly tells her mom that she dressed herself. So that explains the butterfly wings. Very cute. And age appropriate. She's definitely under 10 years old. So why not a little butterfly wing moment? Suzanne's mom refers to the baby as a miracle, so I'm guessing they had some trouble trying to conceive and have a baby. And as somebody who's also struggled in that area, I can totally understand her mom referring to the baby as a miracle, but I personally think she should have been a little bit more mindful of Suzanne and her feelings and what that framing might do to a little girl. It sort of puts the baby up on this pedestal of being a miracle, and I don't really think that's fair to Suzanne. But little Suzanne doesn't seem to mind. She holds her baby sister and they tell her that her name is Grace. And so little Suzanne tells Grace that she's going to be her best friend. It's just the two of them. Best friends for life. But as she's getting excited and showing her little sister all this love and attention, her dad takes the baby from her. And he's like, she's had a long day. Let's let her rest. Little Suzanne is upset though. She's like, "Give me back my baby. She's my baby. Give her back." She doesn't really understand. And so Suzanne has a complete meltdown. And as she's whining for the baby, a nearby nurse notices and comes to try to calm her down. She says to Suzanne, "It's pretty exciting being a big sister, isn't it?" And so she tries to relate to Suzanne on what it's like to be a big sister and how babies are not all they're cracked up to be all the time. The nurse tells Suzanne that her little brother cried for a whole year. The nurse then goes the extra mile and asks Suzanne if she'd like her to do her hair, which I think is a really nice gesture as long as the parents are cool with it, which it seems like they are. They're new parents, they have this new baby. I'm sure they're very busy. Plus, Suzanne is black and they are white. And I'm not so sure that they know how to do her hair properly. So I think it's nice that this black nurse took the time out of her day to show Suzanne a little bit of love and attention there. She tells Suzanne, "It seems like you should have a fancy do to go with that fancy outfit," which I think is really sweet. As the nurse starts to work on Suzanne's hair, I notice that she is creating little bantu knots in her hair, the very same hairstyle that we see Suzanne with when we meet her. So I'm not sure if this is the first time that she's got bantu knots done in her hair. I assume it probably might be because I'm not so sure if her parents knew how to do that at this point, but it looks like this nurse made quite an impression on Suzanne's life because that hairstyle stuck. Back at the prison, Morello's walking the new inmates into their dorms, and Piper is escorted into that temporary dorm where she stayed when she first got here. The one with Miss Rosa and DeMarco. Well, they're still in there, and also we see Gina has the bunk above Miss Rosa. She's got a bandage on her neck and she looks really out of it. She must still be recovering from that burn from last season. You know, when Red tried to sabotage the kitchen and Gina got burned. Also, we have V in the bunk above DeMarco. When Piper gets in there and sees Miss Rosa, she literally goes over to her and gives her a kiss. And she gives DeMarco a great big hug, which is interesting to me because she saw plenty of people that she knew already and she didn't greet any of them, but she's greeting these two with so much love. Interesting. While Piper is hugging DeMarco, she tells her that she never thought she'd be so happy to be back here. Well, I guess so. Those other people at that other prison were not it. Not my faves. So I'm glad that she's back here too. I mean, if you got to be in prison, I'd rather it be this one. DeMarco is shocked that Piper is even back here because she heard that Piper beat Tiffany up real good. And Soso is wide-eyed and shocked, saying, "You beat someone up?" Piper turns to Soso like she's some big baddie. Oh God, are we getting close to Piper's gangster era? And she tells her, dead-faced, "Yes, I did." Like, and what of it? You want to mess with me? Piper, you're not a badass. But okay, here we go. And so that's when Morello asks Soso for her name again. And she says, "It's Soso, Brooke Soso." And then she starts rambling, as Soso tends to do. She starts oversharing about why her parents named her Brooke. At first, she was told she was named after Brooke Shields, but they wanted to take off the E to be more original. And then sometime around her 10th birthday, she was told that she was named after a Brooke instead, which leads me to believe that something must have happened with Brooke Shields in the media at some point around Soso's 10th birthday. I'm not exactly sure how old Soso is, so I don't know when her 10th birthday was. But if anybody knows, please put it in the comments and tell us, what was the controversy with Brooke Shields that made Soso's parents say, "Yeah, no, we actually didn't name you after her. We named you after a babbling brook." Please let me know in the comments. I'm pretty sure that's what they're alluding to here. As Soso finishes her rambling, Miss Rosa says, "Proving once again, you can either be pretty or smart." Which is a pretty rude comment, but also, at least she thinks Soso's pretty. I guess. But DeMarco dismisses her, saying it's the chemo. You know, it makes her cranky. And so Morello tells Soso she should go ahead and take the bunk above Chapman's. And then she offers her a toothbrush and soap, telling her that she doesn't normally bend the rules like this. But apparently Soso doesn't look full Asian, so Morello is willing to help her because she's assuming that she's part white. You know, the whole tribal system thing. And Soso thanks her, saying this is not what she pictured prison to be like at all. Morello also gives Chapman a toothbrush and soap, telling her that she didn't think that she was going to be back here. And Piper's like, me either. They look like they really missed each other. Before Morello leaves them to go on another van run, she tells Miss Rosa that she'll see her tomorrow for her appointment, which is a little nod to the next episode where Morello does drive Miss Rosa to her appointment and maybe make a pit stop or two, but we'll get there. As Morello's heading out of the room, V asks her, "Hey, you have another one of those? You know, toothpaste, soap?" But Morello says she doesn't and basically says she should ask one of the black girls to give it to her. But like in a very dismissive way. Like, Morello clearly has more toothbrushes and soap she's withholding from V because of the tribal system, which I don't love, but it's V, so whatever. Just kidding, it's not great. I still love Morello, but I don't love that. Over in laundry, Tiffany is finding every reason in the world to smile and show off her new teeth. Tiffany tells Leanne that she feels like a snake that just had to shed her scaly skin because it just didn't fit her anymore, you know? Leanne's like, whatever, I don't care what you say. I think they did something funny to you at that hospital. And Tiffany's like, yeah, what do you think is different about me? Look. Leanne apparently can't figure it out, so Tiffany finally says, I got new teeth. But Leanne gives Tiffany no reaction. She's like, oh. Tiffany thinks that Leanne is jealous because she's pretty now and Leanne's not, in her opinion. But that's when Leanne tells Tiffany that her mom says that pretty is for flowers and movie stars because neither one's got a brain. Damn, that's the second pretty or smart comment that we've gotten on this episode. Is this a trend developing? Leanne tells Tiffany that she's acting like she's better than them and they don't like it. And so Tiffany tells her, you know what, maybe you're right. Maybe I am tired of being down here folding y'all's dirty panties. Maybe I want to aim higher for myself before she walks out and flips them the bird. So there's a lot of friction over in Pentatucky's group. It looks like they are not feeling the new her. Over in the black dorms, we see Suzanne laying on her bed with her head hanging off the edge, upside down, and her legs up against the wall. So they're definitely showing us the childlike parts of Suzanne. She's also making a lot of really annoying sounds with her voice, like a lot of and all other kinds of things going on. Very annoying. And it apparently gets to Tasty because she asks Suzanne, do you have anywhere else to be? Like, can you go? But since Suzanne doesn't have anywhere else to be, Tasty tells her, well, then I'll find somewhere else to be because you are annoying as shit. Which I think is really mean, Tasty. That was not nice. It might be true, but you would have to say all that. But before Tasty has a chance to walk off, Suzanne randomly says, I was adopted, you know. To which Tasty says, good for you. I wasn't. But that's when V walks up behind her saying, weren't you? Oh boy, here we go. Tasty looks V up and down, and then she simply says, no. Tasty tells V that she's not even supposed to be in here, but V says that she has her ways, which makes me wonder what Tasty meant by that. She's not supposed to be here. Does Tasty mean in the sense of like V shouldn't have gotten in trouble and gotten herself arrested and sent to prison? Or does she mean that like, does Tasty have some sort of a protective order against her to where V's not supposed to be near Tasty? I'm not sure. I mean, I could totally see that being true too, given what we know about V. So as Tasty and V are having this very intense meeting moment, Suzanne is over there just rambling, you know, like a child. That is until V tells her not to interrupt with the tone of like the most strict mother ever. And Suzanne shuts her mouth right away. Like, oop, okay. And V looks down at Suzanne with like this stern satisfaction, like, okay, I know I can control her. Next. And I hate to see it. I really hate the interactions between V and Suzanne in this season, but we'll go through it. V turns her attention back to Tasty as she tells her that she had to go into hiding. But Tasty's like, I needed you when I was out, and you were nowhere to be found. Apparently, V left Tasty without a note or anything. So, you know, Tasty's already a child of the system. She thought she found this found family, and then her found mother just ups and dips on her like that? Yeah, that's trauma. No wonder Tasty's hurt. V insists that the cops were onto her, and so she couldn't tell anybody where she was because it was too risky. Which is when Tasty points out that apparently V only likes to take risks when it comes to other people, but not when it comes to herself. Yup. Tasty tells V that where she comes from, they call that chicken shit. Yeah, chicken shit, bitch assness, just grimy, nasty, nasty business. But V insists that she had her reasons. Tasty doesn't want to hear that. Tasty says, you know, I'm feeling like I already gave you too much of my time. And I don't need your explaining, and I don't need you, especially in here. And then Tasty walks away. Good for you, Tasty. You came out strong. I just hope you can hold strong. But we'll see. As she walks away, Suzanne's still there laying upside down in the bed talking about, ooh. You know, like a little kid when somebody else gets in trouble. That's when V thanks Suzanne for being patient and letting her finish talking to Tasty. But Suzanne is more concerned with the fact that it seems like Tasty is mad at V. Suzanne tells V that when Tasty's mad at her, she tries not to take it personally. She just focuses on her work and buffing those floors because sometimes people just don't want to play with you. And that's okay. And from all of that, the only thing that V cared to talk about is the fact that Suzanne revealed that she works on the maintenance crew. You know, she's always looking for her ends, the ways that she can use and manipulate people. When Suzanne confirms that she does work on the maintenance crew and buffing is her specialty, V tries to butter her up, saying that's an impressive skill. I bet. Suzanne looks like she's appreciative for even being seen and thanks V for the compliment. And then asks her, by the way, who are you? To which V responds, I'm V. And then she moves her finger in a little circle before she lightly taps Suzanne on her nose, like a little boop, which makes Suzanne giggle like a child. And V smiles because we know that that's V's type of people. V loves to manipulate children and use them for her needs. And so that's exactly what she has planned for Suzanne right from their first meeting. Disgusting. V lightly grabs Suzanne's chin and lifts it up, saying it's nice to meet you, Suzanne. Which I will admit sounds nice that she's calling her Suzanne and not Crazy Eyes like everyone else does around the prison at this point. But it's her motives that make it disgusting for me. She's not doing it because she sees Suzanne as a human. She's doing it because she sees Suzanne as someone that she can manipulate. But that's when C.O. Bell comes in and breaks up their little meeting saying, hey, you and Orange, you're out of bounds. Yeah, V, you got to get up out of here. You're not supposed to be in the main dorms right now. And so as V is walking away, we see Suzanne happily mouth Suzanne with a smile on her face and a twinkle in her eye. It looks like she really likes being called by her name, you know, like a person. Back in another Suzanne flashback, it looks like Suzanne's maybe a preteen or early teenager now, and her little sister looks like she's a younger kid, maybe about 6 years old or so. So the girls are being dropped off at a birthday sleepover, but when the mom comes to the door, she only greets Grace, Suzanne's little sister, and tells her that the girls are downstairs in the game room getting ready to watch a movie, completely ignoring Suzanne. But Suzanne's mom doesn't care. She looks to Suzanne and tells them both to go downstairs and join the party. When the girls go inside, Suzanne's mom explains to the party mom, that she's sorry for springing Suzanne on them, but, they feel it's important for Suzanne to have the same social development as Grace. The party mom tells her that she doesn't think it's appropriate for Suzanne to be here. Suzanne's mom immediately asks the party mom, listen, is it because she's black? But no, it's because she's 10, and this party is for 6-year-olds. Yeah, exactly. Even though it looks like she might be discriminating against her because of her race, I really don't think that's what it is. These are little girls, and Suzanne is much older. If they want Suzanne to have more social interaction, I think they should give her opportunities to meet some friends her own age, and not have her piggybacking off of Grace's friends. But that's when Suzanne's mom stands on business for her daughter. She tells the party mom, do you know how much kids suffer in this world? The ones who are told they're different? She says, I'll be damned if I label my child less than so that the rest of the world can put her in a box and dismiss her before she's had a chance to succeed in life. You're damn right. I respect that as a mom. Good for you for standing up for your kid. Suzanne clearly was a child who had challenges, and thank goodness she had a mom who was willing to stand up for her in this way. She may not have always gotten it right, but at least she tried. The party mom had no choice but to give in to Suzanne's mom at that point, telling her, I'm sure Suzanne will have a great time tonight, with a smile on her face. Back at the prison, we're in the library with Daya, and it looks like she's reading an encyclopedia. The page is open to a section on folic acid, so good for you, Daya, trying to read up and figure out what you need to be doing for your baby. That's great. That's when Bennett starts talking to her through the bookshelves, trying to be kind of incognito. He tells her that he couldn't find her anywhere. He didn't know that she comes to the library. What are you trying to say, dude? Daya says, what are you saying? I don't read? Exactly. What are you trying to say, guy? But Daya realizes he didn't mean it like that. And so she apologizes, saying, it's the hormones. She's real sensitive right now. When Bennett asks Daya what she's reading, she's like, they have magazines around here with information on pregnancy. And so she's showing him the article on folic acid. So apparently, no, she's not reading the encyclopedia. She has the encyclopedia open with a magazine inside, shielding it. So it looks like she's reading an encyclopedia, but she's really just reading a magazine. I don't know why she's doing all that. Is anybody really going to judge her for reading a magazine? Especially one about her baby? It's okay. You can read a magazine. You ain't got to lie. And so Daya tells Bennett that the article says that the folic acid is really good for the baby. But he tells her not to worry about that because his mom didn't take vitamins and he's fine. He then goes on to say, I'm pretty sure your mom didn't take any either. And you're fine. But Elena loves to point out that they're both dumb. So maybe she should take the folic acid. Maybe take the vitamins. And it looks like Daya feels the same way because she tells Bennett that she wants to be better than her mom. She wants this baby to have everything. And then she goes on to tell Bennett that she plans on telling the administration that she's pregnant. And he almost knocks the books off the shelf. He's like, wait, what? You cannot do that. But CEO O'Neill comes over and interrupts Bennett before he and Daya are able to agree about telling the administration or not about her pregnancy. So that's a to be continued. Over in the salon, Sophia is doing Red's hair and Red is telling her, I want to look fierce. And Sophia's like, fierce with a snap? You want to look hot? Or fierce with a claw, rrr. And Red's like, the second one. She wants to be fierce. Rrr. And so Sophia's trying to figure out why Red is trying to get her hair done now. Is Dimitri coming? No. Does she have a love interest on the inside? Hell no. Not Red. So Sophia's like, well, then what is it? And Red says, do you ever look at yourself and realize how other people must see you? Red goes on to say that a woman that she knew a long time ago came back in yesterday. Sounds like Vee. Sophia's like, oh, so you want to impress her? But Red says, no, more like intimidate her. And so that's when Sophia puts on a little Russian accent, imitating Red, saying, don't fuck with me. And she laughs, saying, I got just the color for that. So Sophia is going to hook Red up so that she can intimidate Vee. We'll see how that turns out, and we'll get to know more about their backstory, what happened back in the day, and why they got beef. Over by the phone banks, we see Morello, and she's talking to her sister, who apparently just told her that Christopher is getting married. You know Christopher, her fiancé? Asterisk. And Morello looks shocked and heartbroken. Apparently, Christopher is also moving to Albany, less than an hour from Litchfield. And so Morello thinks that Christopher is trying to rub it in her face. That's when Morello starts to lose it, saying she will fucking strangle him. And Morello's sister must have told her that she went too far with that one because she starts apologizing, telling her she knows, she's sorry, she's trying. And so Morello tries to gather herself, trying to sound as normal as possible. She's like, so, while we're on the subject, why don't you tell me? When's the wedding? Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just kind of wondering. But Morello's sister knows not to give that information to her. And apparently she won't, because next thing we know, Morello's saying, I can find a fucking newspaper if I wanted to. Just tell me when it is. So her mask fell completely off, and she's trying to get down to business. When is this wedding? But for Morello, it's more like desperation than anger. She looks like the love of her life is getting married to somebody else, because in her mind, that's exactly what's happening. And so this is our first little peek into the fact that Christopher is not actually her fiance. Something else is going on here. And so the cracks in Morello's story that we've been told so far are finally starting to reveal themselves. Which totally threw me for a loop when I watched the first time live, because up until this point, I totally believed her that she was just this girl in love and she was getting married to her dream guy, Christopher. But apparently that's not true. And my girl Lorna is delusional, among other things. She tells her sister, my poor baby, he's so confused. He doesn't realize she's a whore. Morello says, you don't go Jessica Simpson when you got Rihanna. Personally, I like Jessica Simpson and Rihanna, so shout out to both of y'all. When Morello gets off the phone, she's clearly still upset, but she tries to pull it together when C.L. Fisher asks her if she's okay. But instead of coming off cool, calm, and collected, she ends up screaming, I'm great! Girl, you don't sound great, but okay. Over in a restaurant across town, we have Larry meeting with Andrew, the reporter that was writing that article about how money is spent at Litchfield. Well, now he's meeting with Larry. So Andrew, the reporter, tells him that he heard Larry's interview on NPR and he was hoping that he can put him in touch with Piper. To Larry's disappointment, he thought that this guy was here for him, but no, you're not interesting. He's here for your girl, or your ex-girl, as it were. Andrew tells Larry that he's doing a piece on fraud and embezzling over at Litchfield and Piper is his in. Apparently, the smoking gun was the fact that he found out the prison planned to build a gym that allegedly already broke ground, but when he looks on Google Earth, there is no such building. And so he's trying to find out, where did that money go? And Larry doesn't want to be left out, so he makes sure to tell the journalist, hey, I know stuff too. I still talk to Piper's counselor regularly. Not true. And so I can be a great help to you in your story. I mean, maybe, but okay, Larry. So back at the prison, apparently one of the inmates' mothers heard on the Today Show that gluten might mess with your system. You might have a gluten allergy. But Gloria says, I do not care. I've got nothing here gluten-free, okay? Prison is gluten. And then Gloria says, don't commit the crime if you can't fucking have flour. Okay, point taken. And as Gloria is laying down the law, we get a shot of V, who's noticing Gloria has control of the kitchen. V is just clocking how this place works so she can figure out what she's going to get going here. Over at one of the cafeteria tables, we see Nicky telling Piper that they're basically snatch sisters now. Which, did Nicky sleep with Alex? I thought that they kind of messed around a little, but I didn't know they actually, got down. Okay, good to know. But Piper doesn't want to hear it. She tells Nicky, can we not talk about my ex-girlfriend's vagina? Piper tells Nicky that she feels like everyone is staring at her. To which Nicky says sarcastically, it's great to see you evolving, Chapman, and getting past that whole I'm the star of my own movie and everyone else is too complex. You guys don't know? The world revolves around Piper. We're just living in it, okay? But Piper is so unaware of how she comes off that she's like, do I really do that? That's when Nicky tells Piper that she really hurt Alex. And that Alex came running to her like an injured lamb. A lamb with great sexy glasses and apparently giant pillowy tits inside of her mouth. But a lamb nonetheless. But Piper tells Nicky that Alex is not a lamb. She is the wolf that eats the lamb. So what are you, Piper? Are you the lamb in this scenario? Nicky says, you can't blame the wolf. Lamb's delicious. That's just smart eating. And that must have struck a nerve with Piper because she bangs the table saying, I can't believe she got out. And Nicky says, the system's fucked, huh? As she laughs in Piper's face. I mean, that's low-key kind of cold. Still love Nicky. Don't love that. That's when Sophia comes over to Piper and she examines her face. And she's like, man, I knew them bitches was lying, talking about you left out of here looking like Omar from The Wire. Like, Piper has not a scar, not a bruise, nothing on her face. Piper looks great. She does not look at all like she was in a fight with Pennsatucky. When Sophia walks away, Piper tells Nicky, see, I told you everybody's talking about me. And so that's when Piper turns to Nicky and tells her, you know, I missed you. And Nicky says she missed her too. And then she tells Piper that it sounds like the prison she was sent to was a fucking nightmare. And that's when Piper gets dark for a second here. Little trigger warning. She tells Nicky, I spent a lot of time wondering if it would even matter if I died. And Nicky tells her, you know, in the macro sense, no, not really. It wouldn't really matter. You're one Cheerio in the bulk box of life. Nicky then goes on to say, but you fucking tickle me, so I think it would matter. And that is why I love Nicky. That's sweet. And I agree. Maybe we are all just blips on this planet. And maybe it feels sometimes like our lives don't matter. But in the lives of the people that we care about the most, yes, absolutely. Losing you would be a huge loss. And so I love that Nicky shared that with Piper here. I love it when Nicky shows her heart of gold. That's the Nicky that I love. Over at another table, V walks up on Cindy talking about, I heard you work at the warehouse. So she's still fishing around trying to figure out what's what. And so she goes on and asks Cindy if she's willing to do an errand for her. As they're talking, Suzanne is in the doorway mopping, but very much listening to their conversation and what's going on. And so V goes on and tells Cindy that apparently she has something hidden in one of the electrical sockets. And so whatever that is, she asks Cindy to go get it for her. But Cindy laughs in her face like, ha, bitch, if Grateful paid the bills, we'd all be Bill Gates. Like, yeah, the answer is no. I will not be doing you any favors. I don't even know you. Yeah, no. Cindy's not trying to do it. But again, Suzanne is an earshot. So we'll see what she decides to do. Which leads us to a scene with the rest of the sleepover girls, and they're telling a story in like a round robin style where one person tells one part and then the next person continues like that. And so the girls start out and they're telling a happy story about a very pretty girl who lived in a big house with her family. But by the time the story gets over to little Suzanne, she turns it into a scary story where a dragon comes and lights the house on fire. But the girls are not amused with Suzanne's version of the story. The birthday girl goes so far that she tells Suzanne that her story is stupid, and so is she. Damn, that's a mean little 6-year-old. Little Suzanne looks so sad telling the little girl that dragons are cool. You know, she was just trying to make the story interesting and fun for the girls, but they didn't take it that way. And so Suzanne was misunderstood, like she often is. Back at Litchfield, Soso is in the bunk above Piper's and she's crying. DeMarco looks over at Piper like, are you going to go check on her? Like, make sure she's okay. And so Piper reluctantly gets up. Like, the tables have turned, girl. It's your turn to help a new girl out. Let's see how she does. Piper tells Soso that she should try to take some deep breaths. And so once Soso's calmed down a little bit, she starts telling Piper about a time when she was volunteering in Ohio with her best friend Meadow and how she misses her so much. But Piper comforts Soso, probably seeing a little bit of herself in her, you know? Piper was very similar when she got here. She cried, she had a hard time adjusting, and she also missed her best friend Polly. So I think it's nice that Piper's taking this time to comfort Soso in this way. Piper tells Soso, you know, I cried my whole first night too. It gets easier. You'll adjust. Piper continues and tells her that she'll make friends, and pretty soon the food won't make her sick, and she'll even be able to poop while making eye contact with someone else. Piper tells Soso, everything ends, even prison, so try to focus on that. And Piper offers her some tissues before Soso gives her a great big hug, saying, I think I'm finding friends already. And Piper's like, okay, all right. I don't think we're friends, but all right. That was a nice thing, Piper, even if y'all are not friends. Elsewhere in the prison, we see Suzanne exploring the warehouse, and she's messing with the electrical outlets, looking for whatever it is that V has hidden in here. She eventually finds the one V was talking about by ramming the buffer into the wall. Oh, Suzanne. But when she does that, the cover of another outlet pops off, revealing a lot of spider webs and an old pack of cigarettes. I assume V left them there the last time she was here, years and years ago. And Suzanne is thrilled as she runs off with the cigarettes, probably to go give them to V and get her praise and approval that she very much wants. Over in the Spanish Harlem dorms, Bennett is busting Daya's balls about the way she's cleaning her area. But Daya is not in the mood for jokes. She's like, Yeah, I got your little gift. Apparently she's angry because he left spinach under her pillow with a note that says, for my baby. But girl, why are you angry? You literally told him that you need folic acid. He got that for you. I'd say that's a good thing. But she's pissed. She thinks it's not romantic, you know? She says, fuck diamonds. I got spinach. Daya's irritated because she can't see herself eating as much spinach as she needs to for the baby. She wants the vitamins. And she's like, listen, the vitamins have other things in it besides folic acid. Like, can you please get me the vitamins? But Bennett explains that he can't because they're pills and he can't bring pills in. But again, Daya does not want to hear it. She tells Bennett, if you're not going to be concerned about the health of our child and you don't want to figure this out, then I'm done. To which Bennett says, please do not act like your mother. It scares me. Oh yes, Daya can be a little mini Alita from time to time, unfortunately. Elsewhere in the prison, we see Suzanne as she's about to go give V the cigarettes that she recovered for her. She's got this great big smile on her face, just so excited to be the one to bring this to V. But when Suzanne sees Piper in there, she stops dead in her tracks. And she throws a toothbrush on the floor before she basically runs out of the room. I guess the toothbrush was for V, you know, taking care of her tribe. But it looks like Suzanne is terrified of Piper. I'm assuming it's because she heard that Piper beat up Tiffany, but I'm not quite sure. So V picks up the toothbrush from the floor before coming outside of the room looking for Suzanne, who's out there having a meltdown. And so V walks up on her like, what are you doing? So Suzanne starts. She's like, I saw dandelion. But V cuts her off and she's like, no, try again. What are you trying to say? And so Suzanne gathers herself and she's like, Piper, she hates me and she's dangerous, but so am I. But V is shocked that Suzanne is over here scared of Piper. V tells Suzanne that back in her day, the black women ran this place. V goes on and tells Suzanne, I see you. You're a smart, strong black woman. And so Suzanne starts looking around. I thought looking around like, are you talking to me? Who are you talking about? But she might have been looking around just to make sure there were no guards, because the next thing we see is Suzanne reaching into her pants and handing V the pack of cigarettes that she found. And V takes them, telling Suzanne, everybody else around here underestimates you, but not me. And you remember that the next time you run into Dandelion, or whatever the hell you want to call her. V tells Suzanne, you hold your head up high, because at the end of the day, you are a garden rose, and that bitch is a weed. And so Suzanne's got her head up, and she's nodding like, yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. It looks like V has empowered Suzanne in some way. And while I'm glad that Suzanne's got that sense of empowerment and, you know, somebody that seemingly sees her, I'm sure it feels good to her, but V's got the worst of intentions. And so, like when Piper met Alex, and when Tasty met V, Suzanne, you're in danger, girl. V thanks Suzanne for the cigarettes and tells her it's good to know that she has a friend in here before she gives her this great big hug. And Suzanne hugs her back super strong, like she really needed that hug. And again, you know, I'm glad she got it. I just hate who she got it from. Over in the kitchen, we see V knocking on Gloria's door, and Gloria is stressed. She's like, listen, I don't got time for this. What do you want? But V is here to pay Gloria a compliment, apparently. She tells her that last night's habanero sauce was almost as good as Larica's. And that's how she gets Gloria's attention, because she's like, how do you know Larica? You know, they go to the same spot, so now they have something in common. And so V has opened the door for conversation. When V introduces herself to Gloria, Gloria's like, welcome to prison. But V says, welcome back, actually. You know, I'm not new here. I've been here before. And so she goes on to flash Gloria the cigarettes that she has in her pants and ask Gloria to make a trade. Now, V don't got no business out here trying to make trades with some stale-ass cigarettes. I don't know if some old dusty cigarettes are worth a trade, Gloria, but let's see. Over in Caputo's office, we see him sitting there with Piper and Tiffany. And Tiffany's annoyed because, again, nobody has noticed her new teeth. And she's like, well, dang it, I got new teeth because she knocked my old ones out. Caputo tells him that he called them into his office because he wants to bury the hatchet. You know, put all of that mess from last season behind them. Caputo goes on to tell them that from an administrative perspective, they're both at fault. But Piper's like, well, no, not really, because Tiffany never hit me. Caputo says, while I admire your incessant need to be special, Chapman, she did. Caputo continues saying, I mean, unless you want to tell me how you ended up in the snow with your face bashed in. And Piper's looking like she doesn't know what he's talking about. She looks like she's racking her brain trying to remember what the hell happened. And we only know what Piper knows. As far as we know, Piper's the one who knocked Tiffany's face in. And that was that. But apparently that's not the case. Caputo says it was a fair fight, so they're even. Case closed. And so the ladies end up agreeing, fine, it's done. But before Caputo dismisses them, he asks them to hug. And Piper's like, are you serious? But he really is. He's like, yeah, because it'll assure me of your newfound friendship. So go ahead, hug. And so they do. And once they're done, he's like, all right, you guys can go. Of course, telling Tiffany to close the door behind her because as we know from season 1, early Caputo likes to have a little fun in his office by himself, giving himself some special attention whenever he gets a little turned on in the prison. So I guess that hug turned him on a little bit. And so he's getting ready to get into his thing. But then he stops himself and he's like, you know what? On second thought, never mind. So I guess that's the end of that part of Caputo's character. It looks like he's no longer going to be doing that in his office. So growth. Elsewhere in the prison, we see Red with her fresh hair color. Her hair is looking super red right now. Not for nothing, her hair looks a little bit like Syndrome from The Incredibles. Just very red, very pointy, very rare. Which is what she was going for, so good for her. As Red is walking down the hallway with her new fresh do, she turns a corner and her eyes lock with V. They chose to play some like Western music here, you know, like Showdown, High Noon, Draw Your Weapons, ladies, as they start walking towards each other, you know? Both of them are mean mugging the entire time. But once they finally reach each other, V's face softens and Red's face softens and they go in for a hug. But remember the title of this week's episode, Hugs Can Be Deceiving. But they're smiling. V tells Red that she's so sorry to see that she's not in the kitchen anymore. She tells her the food is no bueno, meaning not good. But you know, while also giving a little slight to the Latinas. Not nice. Red tells V, well, maybe that'll help you manage your weight. But V don't miss a beat and comes right back with, well, at least black don't crack. And Red says, you're right. Nothing has changed. So these two are like old frenemies. Like they're friendly-ish, but they also watch their back because they're both alphas. And so they know better than to trust each other fully, but they're friendly-ish. V tells Red that she's getting too old for this shit. She says she's been here for 2 days and she's already seen that things have changed a lot around here. So she's not trying to get into any mess. She's going to keep her head down and just do her time, nice and quietly. No drama. She says she just wants a little bit of peace and quiet. Red tells V, that sounds nice, ambitious, and bullshit, but nice. She's like, yeah, fucking right. You are not going to just ride out your time. You can't help but to get into some mess. Stop it. In the next scene, we're in another Suzanne flashback where apparently it's her graduation. She's in the class of 2000 at Winchester High School. We see a very nervous Suzanne getting ready to go up on stage to sing a song for the graduation ceremony. Her whole family is there beside her trying to support her, and her mom says to her, come on, sweetie, this is your chance. Go show them how great you are. Unfortunately, when Suzanne gets up there to sing, she's just not ready. She panics and says, no, I can't do it, Mom. Before she starts to cry and she starts hitting herself, you know, just completely melting down right on the stage in front of everyone at her high school graduation. Not a great moment for Suzanne. And this is probably the moment that Suzanne was referring to back in the season finale of season 1. Remember, they wanted her to sing a solo, and when she got up there, she couldn't do it. And she started to melt down just like this. She started to hit herself in the head before the girls stopped her. And even at the beginning of that episode, when they asked her to do the special part, she said aloud, you know, well, it's not like that could happen again. And we didn't know what she was talking about, but it was probably this. It's not like this could happen again, but it kind of did. And so, yeah, the show basically confirms that by transitioning us back to the Christmas pageant, to that moment when Suzanne froze. Oh, and then they show us a continuation of what we didn't see at the end of last season. So apparently after the performance, Suzanne came out in the hallway still singing the songs. You know, she's still feeling the spirit. But that's when Flocka and Maritza come up to her and they basically play her. They start making fun of her about how she froze up on the stage, asking her if she had pee running down her leg. Flocka even starts making fun of how Suzanne was hitting herself in the head. Usually these two are a fun duo, but this is one of the moments where I do not care for them at all. I don't like how they're treating Suzanne. I don't think it's very nice. So again, while I like them, I do not like this. Maritza and Flocka making fun of Suzanne totally set her off. She's no longer happy and singing. Now she's really upset and hitting herself in the head again. Apparently, that was when Suzanne walked outside and saw Piper hitting Tiffany in the snow. And something must have flipped in her head when she saw Piper because she yells, "No, mommy," and runs to punch Piper right in the nose. And Piper is shocked. But Suzanne is lost in her own trauma right now. She continues and says, I don't want to. You're always pushing me to do these things. No more, mommy. So apparently, while Suzanne's mom is very supportive of her and always has been, maybe she pushed her a little bit too far. Maybe she didn't quite take into account what Suzanne wanted or needed. Apparently, it's had an effect on Suzanne and she's snapped. Unfortunately for Piper, Suzanne is seeing her mother in Piper right now. And so that's how Piper got knocked out. Suzanne knocked her out. That punch must have been really hard because Piper doesn't seem to remember any of that. That brings us right back to the prison and present day, where we see Suzanne asking Piper if she can talk to her for a second. And so Piper agrees and walks outside of the room with Suzanne so they can have a private conversation. Suzanne apologizes to Piper for what she did and she asks her to please not be mad at her. But Piper is like, no, mad at you. Suzanne, you saved me. You made it look like it was a fair fight. You are the whole reason I'm back here. I am so grateful to you. And Suzanne is shocked. Like, oh, okay, that's cool. Piper continues and asks Suzanne if she wants to join her for movie night tonight. But just before Suzanne is able to answer, she notices that Vee has peeked her head out of the room and she's lingering behind Piper, just trying to see what's going on. But her mere presence influences Suzanne, and Suzanne changes her entire demeanor, telling Piper, no, I don't think so, Dandelion. I'm a garden rose, before she walks away, leaving Piper standing there looking dumb and Vee standing behind her looking impressed. Over in the locker room, we see Bennett about to put his prosthetic leg back on when he stops and looks like he realizes something. You know, something like how much space is in the bottom of it and how he just might be able to bring something in for Daya with his prosthetic leg. We'll stick a pin in that. Over in the white dorms, we're with Nicky and we see that she's writing in a notebook. Apparently, she's keeping a log of all the women that she sleeps with in the prison and writing down little notes about them along the way. Like a sex journal or something. But she gets interrupted by the sound of Morello crying. When Nicky goes over to check on her, we find Morello sitting on her bed, just completely in a puddle of tears. Tissues everywhere, just completely distraught. And so Lorna tells Nicky that Christopher is getting married on her wedding date, the date that they were supposed to get married. She's holding a newspaper, so I guess she saw the wedding announcement in there. Nicky looks a little annoyed because she knows that this is a delusion of Lorna's. But she also cares about her, so she holds her, and she tells her, I'm sorry. Morello thinks he picked the date just to hurt her. She says, what kind of woman doesn't want to pick her own date? To which Nicky responds, someone who doesn't get excited by the wedding industrial complex and society's bullshit need to infantilize grown women. Nicky, our junkie philosopher. Elsewhere in the prison, Piper returns to her bed to find Soso laying in it. And she's like, what are you doing? Apparently Soso was down there setting her intention for the day, but Piper's like, all right, set your intention for the day on your own damn bed. Like, get out of my bed. But Soso does not take the hint. She just sits up on Piper's bed, cross-legged, with her shoes on, by the way. Why are Soso's shoes on Piper's bed? Soso tells Piper that traditionally, women are much more communal than men, and that's why most women are less violent, according to a book that she read about the matriarchy in New Guinea. Soso then goes on to say, well, anyways, I think that if you shared a little bit more easily, maybe you wouldn't have beat that girl up, you know? And Piper's like, no, Soso, I don't know. And then Piper loses it on her, saying, no one has a fucking clue what you are talking about ever. And I definitely do not need your advice ever. We are not friends. I am not your new safety blanket. And I am definitely not going to be your new meadow. Piper says, I am a lone wolf, Brooke, and a vicious one, before she walks out of the room, leaving Soso sitting there like, damn. So it looks like the hug that Soso and Piper shared earlier was deceiving also. They are not friends. They are not friendly. So don't get it twisted, Soso. Hugs can be deceiving. Back in the rec room, the black girls are playing charades again, and Suzanne's keeping time. When Poussey notices Vee across the room reading a book, she's like, yo, what's the deal with that bitch anyway? Cindy clearly doesn't like her because she says she's asking for favors already like she owns the damn place. Janae says some of the girls said that she used to run this place. But Cindy does not care. She says she lives in the present. Namaste and shit. That's when Tasty quietly says, that's Vee. And Poussey's like, wait, like Vee? But Cindy's like, who the fuck is Vee? What are y'all talking about? We have no side conversations. Share with the group. And so Poussey explains that Vee is basically like Tasty's mom. And yeah, That's about right. Unfortunately, the only version of a mom she really had in her life. That's when Flocka walks over to V with a big tray of cake covered in chocolate frosting and sprinkles. When she sets it down, V looks up at her and says, "Gracias. Thank you." So it looks like that's what she traded those cigarettes for with Gloria. Chocolate cake, with which she can use to manipulate people. And so she starts, "Hey, Suzanne, come get you some cake." And all the rest of the black girls are like, "What? How come Suzanne gets some?" Cindy literally has her mouth wide open like, "Are you serious?" Suzanne walks over to V with a proud smile on her face like, "Yup, I'm the chosen one." Once Suzanne sits down next to V to get the cake, Black Cindy starts mumbling to Poussey, "Well, why she get cake? How come we can't get no cake? Who she thinks she is?" You know, they are definitely jealous. And they trying to figure out, how do we get in on this cake? And so that's when Tasty walks over to V. And V greets her with a, "Hey, Tasty girl, it's a peace offering." And so that's when Tasty looks down at the cake saying, "Funfetti with chocolate icing." Like in a way that you get the feeling that this is her favorite cake. And with V basically being her mother figure and calling her by her childhood nickname Tasty Girl and having her favorite cake made for her like when she was a kid, V is absolutely doing this to manipulate Tasty, to bring her back into the fold, bring her back to her childlike state, you know, back to the time when V had control over her. And so all of this is a show to manipulate Tasty. I think V knows that when she gets Tasty on board, she'll get the rest of the girls too. Or at least that's what she probably hopes. So no, V is not being nice to Tasty and offering her her favorite cake as a peace offering. She is playing the long game and manipulating Tasty as always. Tasty doesn't understand how V was even able to get this done, but V insists that she gets by with little help and says that Suzanne was actually a big help with this. Well, I guess she was, and she was the one who got you the cigarettes that enabled you to be able to trade with Gloria, that got you the cake that's apparently going to bring Tasty on into the fold. So yeah, Suzanne helped. But when Tasty doesn't take the peace offering cake, V says, "Forgive me." She promises Tasty that she'll never let her down again. She tries to guilt trip Tasty by saying that she was there for her all those years. You know, reminding Tasty about how she took care of her back in the day. She tells Tasty that she wants to do the same here. Tasty doesn't say anything, but she takes the cake. And V smiles, asking Tasty to invite her friends to join them. You know, Poussey, Cindy, and Janae, who are sitting nearby watching this whole thing go down. And so Tasty invites them over and starts introducing everybody to V. Of course, this is when Red walks up and sees this whole interaction happening. And she knows V is gathering her people. So Red better get on it and get her people back together, just in case that hug earlier was deceiving. So when the black girls come over to join Tasty, V, and Suzanne with the cake, they're all happy. They all look excited to join and get to know V, all except for Poussey, who's still giving her the side eye like, "Who the fuck are you? I don't trust you. What do you got going on?" And Poussey is right to have that discernment because V is up to no damn good. But Poussey does eventually take a piece of cake also. And as they're all sitting around eating the cake, V starts to ask them about the game they were playing earlier. But Poussey immediately is basically like, "Yeah, well, you can't play because it doesn't work with an uneven number, so no offense, but none of your business." But V says she counts 6 of them because she's counting Suzanne, whereas the other girls were not. Janae explains that away, saying, "Well, somebody needs to keep time." But V has a solution for that. She says everybody can take turns keeping time. Which, true, they sure can. Let Suzanne play. But Cindy sees these rule changes as an opportunity to make a rule change of her own, and so she suggests mixing up the teams a little bit, you know, because she's not cool with Tasty and Poussey winning all the time. And V's cool with that change. So Cindy tells her, "You know, I had a feeling about you. I knew we'd get along." And so that's also a character trait of Cindy's that we will continue to see throughout this show. She's for sure an opportunist who will basically always take advantage and do what she needs to do to put herself ahead. In this case, it's with charades. In future cases, it's a little bit more serious. But we'll get there. As they're all sitting there eating cake, Suzanne starts messing with her hair. But V stops her saying, "Let me help you with that, baby." You know, mothering her a little bit, but not to be nice, to be manipulative. V starts to undo Suzanne's bantu knots, telling her that she needs a new look. But she's reluctant to that. She's like, "Listen, this is how I've always done my hair." But V insists, maybe it's time to air your hair out a little bit. And so we'll see where she goes with that. But before that scene cuts, V and Red catch each other's eyes. Then they share a knowing look. Red looks at V like, "I see what you're up to, gathering your people." And V looks at Red like, "I see you seeing me, so you know what's up," you know? These frenemies truly are in a duel, but so far it's a silent one. Outside of the kitchen by the loading dock, we see two more moms, Gloria and Aleda, smoking cigarettes. You know, the ones V gave to Gloria for the cake. But just like I said, Aleda says, these are stale as fuck. Where did you get these? 1983? Word, I knew they had to be bad. And Gloria just looks down at the cigarette, examining it before looking straight ahead, saying, motherfucker, and shaking her head before we go to our orange screen, indicating the end of the episode. And so the song that's playing as the credits roll this week is called Crazy Eyes for You by Bobby Hamilton. It's a song from 1958, apparently. But the fact that it's called Crazy Eyes for You, I love it as a small little nod to Suzanne's nickname of Crazy Eyes. Being that this is her backstory episode, I think that's a perfect ending. As a reminder, IMDb rated this episode an 8. But let me think about my rating for a moment. Well, first of all, I think that the title of this episode, Hugs Can Be Deceiving, was an excellent title. I love how it kind of played a part in many different stories in the show. From Piper and Tiffany having to hug after they buried the hatchet, to Piper and Soso hugging when Piper was comforting her that first night, and especially when it comes to Red and V reuniting for the first time. Sure, on the outside it looks like they're hugging, but I wouldn't trust any of those hugs to mean true friendship. I will say that this episode did not bring out the best in some of my favorite characters. I found myself saying I like her or them, but I don't like that quite a bit this episode. But you know, that's part of the reason why these characters are so well written. They're not perfect. They do bad things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. And so while I don't personally agree with every single thing that some of my favorite characters say and do, I still have love for them. I think this episode did a really nice job of introducing the character of Soso. I think that the way her story parallels Piper's is really interesting, and I think it was a really clever way to write her. I also think it was an interesting way to show just how much Piper has changed since she first got to the prison. She is a far cry from that naive girl that first got here in season 1. And while I really hate the way that V manipulates people in this prison, and especially Suzanne, I really have to give props to the writers and the acting in this episode for the way that dynamic was presented. I think it was done in a really clever and nuanced way. And the way it tied everything together from season 1 and also from Suzanne's backstories, I thought was very well done. And I really like how this episode set up what's going to happen next episode with Lorna. Those little tiny breadcrumbs that give us a little peek into her story were very interesting in this episode to me. So with all of that, I would have to give this episode probably, I'm going to go for an 8.2. 8.2 for this one. Very good episode. But you guys know that's just me. Please don't forget to comment your favorite lines from the episode and let me know what your personal rating is for this week's episode. Mine again is an 8.2, but what do you think? I would love to hear yours. The next episode we will be rewatching is season 2, episode 4, titled A Whole Other Hole. I remember parts of that episode just from the title alone. The IMDb synopsis for that episode says, Morello takes a ride, the girls learn about the female body, Piper and Boo make a deal, Miss Rosa meets a boy, and Larry and Polly have a date together. Very interesting episode. We will also be getting our very first Lorna Morello backstory scenes in that episode, which I remember shocking the hell out of me on my first watch through, but we'll get there. I can't wait to get into all of that when we revisit season 2, episode 4, A Whole Other Hole next time. As always, thanks for hanging with me in Yadda Space. Just so you know, I've been having such a good time chit-chatting with you guys about Orange is the New Black. I am just a neurospicy lady trying to break out of my shell. Self-promotion does not come easy, but I know it's a must to keep the podcast going. Every time you guys listen to the podcast, you like a post, you comment, or you share a post on social media, you're helping this little podcast to grow, and I can't thank you enough for the love and support. If you've been hanging out in Yadda Space for a while now and you're enjoying the Back to Litchfield podcast, please consider leaving the podcast a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. Also, if you're able and want to go the extra mile, please consider checking out our Patreon. Joining the Prison Moms tier helps to literally keep the lights on for this little one-lady show, and it gives you early ad-free episodes, access to our exclusive Back to Litchfield chat right on Patreon, and honorary producer credits for the podcast. And be sure to follow us on your favorite social media apps for bonus content from the show, as well as updates about the podcast. And if ever you're searching for the pod, remember, it's just like the theme song says, Yadda Space with 2 E's. Thanks again for your continued support. It means so, so very much. I'll catch up with y'all next time here at Yadda Space.
Hey, welcome friends to Yadda Space. I'm Yadda here, let's set the pace. This is a rewatch podcast, so let's begin. Orange is the new black is where we dive in. Tasty's wisdom sets the tone. Jose's heart feels like home. Nicky's got that quick one fire. Morello's love of love lifts us higher. Spoilers everywhere, so be warned. Super fast, please come aboard. Susan's special mind, build all these ideas. Because make baby berry beans chewy as it is. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 oh. Let's kitchen rules the game. Glorious strength, she keeps the flame. Our latest hustle never quits. Looks the towns are gems every bit. Every episode we'll discuss.